combine and pack it very well with non-competes and non-disclosures. So briefly, this just protects your business from an employee who is exiting the business, from poaching your clients, and from poaching on your fellow employees that you have obtained. You don't want somebody to leave and take those skills with them. It's another thing where it's very flexible, depends on the circumstances. You want to limit this to duration and make sure that it's a reasonable time period, because in 2 years, that's probably long enough where they've had outside connections with those other employees, and if that other employee wants to leave and take another job, that's fine. You want to ensure that you're not setting up in an office like this. If this was our office, we don't want you to go talk to you in the covert ops of night and take every single employee, and you show up to work one day and you have no one. So we now know that before you hire anybody, you would like to have some agreements set aside. You want some things drafted to protect your interests. But how are you going to pay this person? How are you going to actually ensure that that person can stay in the door? You need to look at what risks you're willing to take in your business. Do you already have revenue? If you have revenue, do you have enough revenue to sustain that additional employee? Otherwise, you may want to think of ways to generate that revenue to pay that additional salary or wage. Some things that we suggest is pre-sales of your products, or work for a while, actually grow your business additionally, have some additional sales. Some types of employees that you could consider hiring are part-time or flex-time employees. Think outside the box. Is there somebody who's retired who already has that knowledge and skill set? Can you use that person to your advantage? Maybe you have somebody who's a stay-at-home parent who has the ability and the skills but lacks the time, would be able to do this in the dead of night. And because they're on flex time, because they're part-time, that's a lower cost to you most often, and that's a way to get somebody into the door. You can also think of deferred compensation packages, such as a deferred cash bonus, increasing salary after a certain milestone has been met by an employee, payback or back pay provisions. So if you do X, Y, Z, at that time you will be given another salary increase, and it's going to be based on how many hours you've worked to date. But you have to be careful, because if you call it deferred compensation, you can run into legal trouble where you are liable and you are obligated to pay that. Whether if you would put it as a bonus or an incentive, it's a goal for somebody to reach, and it's not as obligatory to the company to pay that. And briefly, Ryan will touch on this more, but just know you can't offer equity and stock options to employees as an incentive package when you hire them, and Ryan will go more into detail with that under partners. And also, the obvious one, I guess, and also the unobvious one in another sense, is interns and volunteers. Tap your family, tap your friends, and see if you can get somebody to help you grow your business in a volunteer sense. And in interns, you can try college students, and with the economy being stable, but it's a little fluid right now, you may actually be able to get graduates, recent graduates, or people who are just out there wanting to get into your business and be a budding star, and they may be willing to work for a lower wage or comp time, something free. And you can experiment with that in some senses. So now we know how to pay our employees. What kind of employees should you hire? And right now we're going to compare at-will employees and independent contractors. Independent contractors are separate entities that contractually sign with you to do a particular job or a certain period of work. It's something that they are doing for your business. The pros of having an independent contractor versus an at-will employee is this can save you money. That independent contractor should be obligated via contract. You should ensure when you fill out an agreement that they state that they will carry insurance, that they are going to pay the employee carrying costs for their employees. You don't have to pay for the 6 workers that they're going to bring with them. They will also have their own tools and equipment most often, and that reduces your cost because it's something that you will not have to buy. Some of the cons are you won't be the only client most often, and so you'll have to be fit into a schedule with the other employees, with the other people who have contracted with that independent contractor. And another aspect that people rarely think about is if this person is developing intellectual property for you, who's going to own that? They are a separate entity. Technically, they could own that. You can change that with a contract, and you can say anything that you work on with this product or with this business line for my business is going to be property of the business. but that is something that you most likely want to state in your hiring contract with them to ensure everybody's on the same page with what is going to happen moving forward. Contrasting with an at-will employee, the big thing here is control. You are basically the master of this employee. You hired this person, you can fire this person at will. You control their daily tasks. You can train them however you want them, mold them however you want them to be. That's actually one of the biggest reasons why people would prefer to have an employee over an independent contractor. It's very difficult to make an independent contractor do something that's outside of the contract that you've signed, and things happen, things change. You don't know what's going to come up in 6 months. The cons of having an at-will employee is you are liable for everything that employee does while they're on the clock. They get in a car accident, driving a company car to go get whatever for you at the office supply store. You're responsible for that. So you're going to be the one carrying the insurance. You have to pay half of their taxes, and I think tax rate right now is about 15.5%. So you're responsible for about 7.5% of that. And that comes out of the company's pocket, not out of your employees' pay stubs, out of the portion that you're paying them. The other thing that you have to think about is workers' comp, OSHA, Title VII, which is civil rights, and ADA, American with Disabilities Act. You have to have certain compliance checks given the number of employees that you have. And just as a good measure, even if you have less employees than what is federally mandated, they're good policies to have. But you have to post things in a break room where everybody can see. You have to make sure that you follow certain guidelines. And it's just, there are things that are good, but it's all time consuming. Everything takes money, and that's cost that's going to come out of your profits. So it's something that you just need to think about. And do you think that you want an independent contractor or an at-will employee? Because you could be wrong, and the IRS is going to tell you that you're wrong, and they're going to tell you exactly what they think you should have and why the employee should be classified as such. But they're not really going to give you any hard rules. They're going to give you some soft guidelines, and you need to figure out what tax-wise that person fits into. And there are 21 factors. This is just a short list of things that you can think about to determine, do you have an independent contractor, or have you set up an agreement that gives you an at-will employee with additional obligations? So do you have control? Can you hire, fire at will, or is this a contractual obligation where you sign with somebody and they are required to complete a job by X date? Were you responsible for training that person? If so, you're more than likely to have an at-will employee. But we can all think of a scenario where if you have a brand new product where nobody has ever seen this before, you're probably going to have to train that independent contractor at some level to make sure that they do exactly what you need. So that right there, can you argue that that person is still an independent contractor even though you had to give him 2 weeks of training on XYZ program? Also, did you supply the tools, or were the tools supplied by the person who you contracted with? Generally, you would think that means an independent contractor, but that doesn't necessarily mean the case. Maybe you have an independent contractor who doesn't have that particular tool that you need. And you can see that this is very daunting. These are only a couple of the factors. There are 21 of them. This is a really good time to think about hiring an attorney and to ask them, what do you think? Look, I'm hiring this person. This is the contract that I've set up, and preferably this attorney has drafted this contract for you, and you've talked this through. But it's a very good time to analyze your situation and realize that it gets very difficult very quick, and there are only a few attorneys that actually deal with the IRS tax attorneys. It's a very hard area. It's not as simple as what it appears to be up here. And at this point, I'm going to flip it over to Ryan, and he's going to discuss adding a new partner, which can be contrasted with independent contractors and at-will employees.
Again, another option to expand your business is by adding a new partner. And in this section, we're going to look at how to add a new partner, how to evaluate that potential partner, how to manage the risk of bringing on a partner, and some issues that a minority partner is going to be interested in when they join the firm. So how do we add a partner? Compared to adding an employee, adding a new partner is much more permanent and brings many more issues. And some of those issues are in control and decision making and the ownership of the business. Adding a partner is a lot like getting married, but instead of getting married into your personal family, you're marrying them into your business family. Like all marriages, it's easier to get into than to get out of. Adding a partner, again, is deceptively easy. Once an agreement is made, you can add a partner with as little as a one-page document. But as we'll see later, it's a pretty complicated process that requires careful review. For corporations, there's no partners per se. The founding members are all shareholders and will have an equity interest based on the number of shares that they hold. Corporations are governed by state law, and the articles of incorporation and the bylaws will determine the day-to-day rules and operations for that business. For LLCs, you can have shares and shareholders, but typically you go with a membership structure, which feels a lot more like partners. And partners, again, and members can be equally split, or they can have different percentage interests, like a 5% or 10% stake in the business. When you add partner, again, you're usually offering a financial interest or a management interest in the company. This means that the partner has say in corporate events. And this can be a trap for the unwary. If you do not anticipate future problems or rely on the state's default rules, you can find that your business isn't working quite the way you'd hoped it would be. For example, some major corporate events can require the consent of all shareholders or all members in order to approve. And so giving someone a small 5% stake in your business can effectively give them a veto right over the other 95% of the business's owners. Another common problem, especially with LLCs, is if you do not document your agreements between your partners, you'll find yourself relying on the state's default rules, and these can be quite different than what you want. For example, when you're bringing on a new partner, the default rule is that you'll have an equal share in management. And so if you're bringing on a third partner, they'll be given a 33% ownership stake in a company, an equal share, when perhaps you only wanted them to come on for 10%. And so you have to specify in your operating agreement or elsewhere exactly what you want done, otherwise it may not be in your hands. And again, for each of the events on here, voting and control can be different for each. And the partners need to review and think about what policies they want and how they want these transactions to occur in order for them all to work the way that they want. Now we're going to look at evaluating a potential partner. The basic reason you take on a new partner is because you hope that they add value to the business. This can be in either social, human, or financial capital. They have something that you're lacking. They have an essential skill that the original founders don't have, that you have to have. Or you expect that their involvement will be significant over time. Another reason that you add a partner is because you don't have the funds right now to pay an employee to bring those skills into the business. Because you're only giving them a stake of equity, you don't have to have the cash on hand to pay a salary. You can give them their stake in the business and have them work for that. And again, if you have an employee, giving them an ownership stake is also an easy way of keeping them involved with the business and providing them with an incentive. There's also personal factors for adding an individual on. The original partners may not have time to work. Maybe they don't want to work in the business by themselves. Or perhaps for task preferences, they don't like doing accounting or budgeting. You can bring in a partner specifically to do those particular tasks. But lack of funds and the personal factors are all secondary to the fact that that partner should be bringing in something to the business. And once you add a partner, partners again can cause problems. You need to seek a balance within your business, and typically the balance between partners needs to find some harmony within the roles, the relationships, and the rewards that each of the partners are looking for. For example, if you have two partners trying to vie for the title of CEO, your business is going to have a conflict over roles. If you have disagreements on how to do management styles, or just personal problems between your managers, you can run into troubles there. And perhaps as far as rewards, do the partners all want to contribute money back into the business, plow money back in and grow, or do they want the money today? There's a lot of different